Let me start, Professor Marandi, with the latest post on Donald Trump's account and on through social. He says that their air defense, he's talking about Iran, their air defense, Air Force, Navy, and the leadership is gone. They want to talk. I said too late. What is your response to that? How does it reflect the reality of what's going on?
Well, I guess it's over then, Nima, so we don't need to continue the discussion. It's time for us to surrender, I suppose, and I'll just end it with my my surrender to the U.S. Armed Forces. But again, that's when during the 12-day war, I'm sure you recall, Trump demanded unconditional surrender, and he was constantly posting how he can kill the leader, and all that sort of outrageous nonsense. And he was gloating about how they were deceitful at the negotiating table and how bad things were from on the Iranian side. And then it turned out when the halt in hostilities took place, he actually admitted that Iran gave the Israelis a beating. And then, of course, we learned from other sources that the Israelis had been seeking a ceasefire for days, and Trump was trying to get that ceasefire for them. So that unconditional surrender didn't go that well. This time, they thought that, well, Iran wasn't a house of cards. So what we'll do is we'll mobilize everything we have. The anti-forever war Trump said, we'll mobilize everything. And they did. They brought a huge amount of weapons and jets and ships to the region. And they attacked alongside their sidekick, or maybe they're the sidekick to the Israeli regime, who knows? But they failed. And the murder of Ayatollah Khamenei, his martyrdom, made people outraged, not just in Iran, but across the region and beyond. You see Ayatollah Khamenei now being mourned in places that you could never have imagined. In Iraq, it's like Iran. You have huge crowds on the streets. So what they did, Trump, was they called for the Iranians to come to the streets, but the Iranians came for the exact opposite reason that Trump was demanding. They came to commemorate the martyr, Ayatollah Khamenei. They came to condemn the United States. I don't know if you can hear, they're bombing right now. They came to defend the Islamic Republic and to reject the empire, and demanding the armed forces to strike back, and to strike back hard and harder. This is because the United States and the West, the collective West, never understood Iran. They look at Iran from a racist, Orientalist point of view. They see it as incapable of governing itself, being backward, unpopular, about to implode. They've been saying it for well over 40 years. I said this before on another program. I've been doing these weekly programs on Al Mayadeen called Demystifying Iran. And the last one that I did last Friday, it was about how the narrative of Iran always collapsing remains the same over decades. So the same things that are being said today by the New York Times and the Washington Post were being said in the 1980s and the 1990s and at the beginning of the new century. You could put those articles or those, excuse me, or those phrases or the headlines in today's reports, and you wouldn't notice the difference. Back then, they were saying people are sick and tired of the revolution. The younger generation, they were saying in the 1990s, they don't want this anymore. They want something different. There's a second revolution brewing, and it's always the same. But this collapsing Iran has been collapsing for 47 years, and now the Americans are waging war against the country along with the Israeli regime with everything they have. And the country is steadfast and resilient. Last night and the night before, throughout the country, there were huge gatherings. You know this, tens of millions of people. In Tehran, they didn't have a single gathering. They had multiple gatherings for safety purposes, I assume, like 20 or so gatherings. Each one had tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Some maybe tens, some hundreds of thousands of people. And I put uh, some videos of last night and the night before in my Telegram channel, so that people could sort of see what Tehran looked like. Other cities, it's just too much. But the point is that in some cases, if you look at the videos, the Israeli and the American regimes are bombing the city. And you see anti-aircraft defenses working, and people won't budge. Men and women, they're chanting slogans saying, "We're prepared to be martyred." It's unbelievable. Well, for me, it's believable, but it's stunning, and I think it should be unbelievable for these fools in the White House and across the West, and the Guardian and the Breitbart, and which are more or less the same thing when it comes to imperialism and the empire in Iran in particular. So, on the one hand, through the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei, they made Iran more resilient. They made Iranians more united. They've made people across the region outraged. They've made the international community look at the United States with disgust. And simultaneously, they went and murdered 165 or so kids and 10 or 20 teachers almost simultaneously in Minab. And the Western media, the BBC, CNN, they ignore it. All of the Western media. Because for them, Iranian kids are worthless. And that has had a big effect on this small minority of people who are on the streets with the rioters, these young kids who are foolishly fooled into believing these Western narratives. They're seeing with their own eyes that Iran was negotiating. The Omani foreign minister said significant progress was made. And then they went and murdered the leader. And then these young people saw that the leader was not prepared, not willing to leave his house or his office, because he said that many struggling Iranians have nowhere to go. So I'm not leaving either. That is the person who was leading our country. That is the person who through his brilliance created a military program that costed much less than the military expenditures of neighboring countries, but was far more effective. Underground cities of drones and missiles and indigenous technology. So the Americans, the regime in Washington, and the Zionist regime, they cannot destroy these facilities, and most of them are still untouched. They haven't even used them. Most of the underground bases have not been even functioning yet. They haven't been working yet. They're waiting for orders. So more or less the bases that were used during the previous war are being used, and some of the bases to the south directed towards the Persian Gulf. And they're beating back the enemy. So Trump has united Iranians more than before, united Iran's allies more than before, created outrage across the region and beyond more than ever before. And militarily, despite the ugly and brutal behavior of the United States, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, bombing radio and television. I was at Iranian television last night till 12 p.m. on an Iranian program. An hour later, when I arrived home, they bombed IRIB. They bombed Iranian television, the complex. And the night before, they also bombed it, because I went to that TV channel. I went to the previous building. I didn't know it had been bombed, and they told me no. It was. I saw the building damaged, and they said they moved it to another place. So I went to this other place last night, and then, as I said, an hour later, so they bombed the Western journalists Do these mercenaries of the Epstein class, do they condemn the bombing of the radio, national radio and television? No. Not like they do about the 260 Palestinian journalists who were slaughtered during the ongoing genocide in Gaza. They didn't care. And of course, the many journalists in Lebanon who've been slaughtered, and as we speak, the Israeli regime is slaughtering civilians in Lebanon as before. And again, Western journalists, Western regimes look away because they allow the Israeli regime to get away with anything. So Iran militarily has been, I mean, they're hurting us, they're killing people, they carry out double tap strikes. One of our actually an acquaintance of both of us, who I'll tell you after the show, he was a witness to a double tap attack where they made Ferdowsi Square, and then when people gathered to find people under the rubble, they struck it again. These are the monsters that we're dealing with. They can't take out the underground cities. They can't do anything about Iran's military capabilities, so they take it out on women and children. They take it out on ordinary people. This is the essence of this Epstein coalition, this Epstein army, or these two Epstein armies that are expressing rage against ordinary Iranians because they failed on the battlefield.
I think one of the signs that they're hitting the civilian, infrastructure and, the homes of the people is because they don't have the information they had before 12-day war. And that network of spies being destroyed by Iranian intelligence, it seems that they don't have it, as we saw in Yemen, where they didn't have any. They were running out of choice in Yemen, out of target. That was the reason that they hit all these. They went after the people who were gathering. If you remember, during the Eid, it wasn't. Yeah, and they hit the civilians, killing civilians. Donald Trump bragging about it on his social media, and they're doing the same. Is that the case? You're living in Tehran. You've seen the targets right now in Tehran. Where are they targeting?
Well, in the case of Yemen, you're absolutely correct. There was a gathering. They were in a circle, and that was a part of their traditional gatherings, and they bombed it. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't have any way to know, but they never expressed shame and remorse for it. No one in the West apologized for slaughtering those little girls and little kids in that elementary school. No one. Western media, the BBC, CNN, none of them cared. And that shows a great deal about who they are. And it showed who they are to Iranians, to these young Iranians, some of these young Iranians who were deceived through their Persian media empire, the West Persian media empire. Now they see reality. But I think that you're absolutely correct. Their intelligence networks have been smashed. We saw last time round that Iran's air defenses had much greater difficulty. This time round, they've been downing drones left and right. And American and Israeli jets are firing missiles from afar, even though the force is much greater than the 12-day war. The American presence is much greater than the entire Israeli military capability. So, but they don't care. I'm sure they know. They knew that they were bombing hospitals. I'm sure they knew they were bombing a school. I mean, how could they not know? You can find it on Google Map. It's not like it's obvious. Or the Gandhi Hospital in Tehran that was bombed. They went and hit the IVF unit. So women who were trying for years to have kids, now what are they going to do? They hit the infant department. They hit a hospital in the south, one near the Iraqi border. In Khuzestan, they bombed multiple hospitals. Is that a coincidence? No, of course not. That's who these These people are both the American regime and the Israeli regime. In the Israelis, we all remember what they did to every single hospital. At the beginning, Western media every time tried to provide them with excuses and behaved as apologists. But then when they just destroyed hospital after hospital, instead of trying to justify it, they just ignored it. You recall when they pulled the plugs on those incubators, the Israelis, and allowed the babies in the incubators to all die. You would have thought that the entire West would have just sanctioned the Israeli regime. No, of course not. They are they're the master race. So, and of course, they have schools, and that's what they do. They rape kids and kill kids, and now they bomb kids. So there are no. I don't think these were because of a lack of intelligence. They don't have the intelligence that they had before. You're absolutely correct. Day one, the attacks to kill senior military officials largely failed. The leader, of course, was murdering him was no intelligence coup. He was in his office. He was in his residence. His wife was murdered. His granddaughter was murdered. His son-in-law was murdered. There was no secret there. But the Americans always pretend that they're much more than the regime, I mean, is much they're much more efficient and effective, and the Zionists are the same as that which they really are. But now, after a number of days of fighting, we see that the Iranians are hitting very hard, and they still haven't. They're basically using their older missiles. Nima, the Iranians are using 20-year-old missiles, and they're going right through the defenses. They're using, I don't know, 15, I don't know exactly about the drones, but they're using drones that are probably just as old to strike targets, US targets and US assets in the Persian Gulf region. And they can't stop them. And their defenses are not working. And the Iranians still have not been using their more recent, their top-notch technology. So this is all going bad for the United States. And the Iranians, they're not seeking a ceasefire. They're not interested in negotiations. They are determined to inflict a strategic defeat on the enemy so that this does not happen again. The Iranians are not interested in a ceasefire where the Americans and where the Epstein regime can regroup and then later carry out another attack. That's not going to happen. So Iran is going to punish the Americans, the Israelis, and indirectly these Arab regimes. Iran is not targeting them, but by targeting US assets, these regimes finally understand how weak and vulnerable and what empty shells they are. And of course, Iran is holding the Strait of Hormuz. They've kept it closed. Those ships and tankers that obey Iranian orders are untouched, but they're not letting the oil get through. And a few of the ships, the tankers that tried to get through under American orders, they were all hit. So Iran is pushing up the price of oil, the price of gas, to increase pressure on Trump to end this. And of course, Iran is inflicting severe pain. Iran is also being hit. As I said, people are being killed, people are being murdered. And these are painful days for us. But we didn't start this war. They started it. And for us, this is an existential war. For them, it was a war of choice done for the sake of, Rubio basically admitted it, that this was done for Israel. So the American people are making sacrifices. They are losing money. Their citizens are being killed, and the price of energy is going up, all for the sake of a genocidal that is being supported by the Senate and the House and the other Israeli firsters that are controlling Washington.
Donald Trump said that he's surprised with the attacks on the Arab states in the Persian Gulf. You and I were talking about this for more than a year, and you were warning the United States that if they attack Iran, Iran would hit these Arab states in the Persian Gulf. And do you think that he's somehow trying to say that, because after all, we know that how important are these bases for the United States, for the air defense system of Israel, because they're getting a lot of signals from the radars, mostly located in the bases, American bases in the Persian Gulf, to go after Iranian missiles. How could he say that? Because it's somehow, and the Arab states somehow, they feel that the United States left them without any support, without any help. What is your understanding of that?
I think Trump has surrounded himself with fools and Israeli firsters who don't care about the United States, first and foremost. Their interests are in Israel, and the United States can make sacrifices for Israel. That's as far as they're concerned, that's fine. But also it's hubris, it's arrogance, it's racism. They imagine themselves as being invincible. And of course, the Iranians are these Orientals that are incapable of fighting, and they're intimidated. And I think Pierce Morgan once said to me, a lot of hot air, when I said that this would happen. And he said, they're not going to do anything. It's that arrogance.
Yeah.
And now they're finding out the hard way. Why in the world should he be surprised? They have bases in each and every one of these countries. These bases are being used to conspire against Iran, whether in Qatar or in the Emirates or in Bahrain or in Saudi Arabia or in Oman or Kuwait. And of course, Jordan. And of course, Turkey. Turkey, the US bases in Turkey are being used against Iran. NATO AWACS jets are flying over Turkey, being used against Iran. All of these regimes, despite the fact that the US ambassador to the Israeli regime said that if Israel takes the whole region, that's fine. But still, these fools are cooperating with the empire against Iran. And they all know that if Iran falls, and it will not fall, all of them, from Erdogan to these Persian Gulf regimes, they will be left naked in front of the enemy, every single one. But Iran will not fall. Iran will win this war. Iran will impose a strategic defeat on the United States, no doubt about it. Already, this image of this invincible American superpower is collapsing. The fact that Iran is striking again and again at US targets in these countries, and they're not just bases. The Americans have created huge infrastructure across the Persian Gulf. It's like they own these. Well, it is. They do own these countries. And so they're using hotels. They have all sorts of infrastructure. They can do whatever they want. And so, but the Iranians are saying, wherever you are, wherever you have interests, wherever you have assets, we will target them. And Trump why would he be shocked? He's bombing hospitals. He's bombing schools. He bombed the leader's home and his office. So what is there for him to complain? They're bombing all of the public infrastructure across the country because they want to tear apart the social fabric of Iran. That's how sinister this regime is. And the reason why they're doing this is because they failed on the battlefield. They failed to take out Iran's military capabilities. But it's not going to work. And the longer this war lasts, the worse it's going to be for the United States. And this is going to be a turning point. The US empire in future will not be able to flex its muscles again like it did in the past, because it will take a beating from Iran. The price is going to be high. People will die. You can, every now and then you hear explosions. They're murdering people in Tehran and then carrying out double tap attacks to kill the first responders. Price will be high, but we have no choice. We have to defeat them. And I think with the economic problems at home and with the deep divisions of American society, it's going to be very difficult for Trump to sustain this war.